Promotional consideration brought to you by...
Hi there, I'm Brian Finlay. I've been working in the animation industry for over 20 years. Come join me as we explore the process of creating an animated cartoon. We'll meet some amazing people along the way, right here on Drawn to It, Behind the Screens. And that ought to do it. That's good. I feel good about that. Welcome back to Drawn to It Behind the Screens. This episode is all about character design. Now, we've put the work in and we've got our basic script. I say basic, it's a very small script. You know, we're just doing a 1 minute thing here. But we've put the work in and we got our story where we want it. But we need a character. We got to figure out who the character is. We know it's a bear. Specifically, Barry the Bear, most original name ever, right? Not even. But what does Barry the Bear look like? Well, in order to draw a cartoon bear, it really helps if you have an understanding of the real thing. And to get that understanding of bear anatomy so that you can properly exaggerate it and caricature it, we're gonna have to put some research in. So in order to do that, we're gonna go here. So today we're here at Magnetic Hill Zoo in Moncton, New Brunswick. And why are we here? It's not just for the mosquitoes. We're gonna go visit the bear habitat. We're gonna do some life drawing of the bears so that we can get a better understanding of bear anatomy, which will help us design our character, Barry the Bear. At least that's what we wanted to do. We got here at the zoo, drove an hour and a half to come draw our friend the bear, and our friend the bear is hiding and has been hiding for hours and shows no sign of coming out. You can't even see the bear. So what we're gonna have to do is go online and do some virtual life drawing studies. You know, learning to draw anything is going to be maybe not stressful, but it's going to be a journey of, in the beginning, you're not so great, and as you practice, you get better and better and better. I'm certainly feeling that with this character design of Barry the Bear. I mean, I don't think I've drawn bears more than 2 or 3 times in my whole career. So it's definitely a learning process for me. So now that we're ready to move forward with our character design of Barry the Bear, because we did our research, our life drawing part, what do we think about? Like, what are some of the things a character designer has to keep in mind as they're designing their character? Well, in order to answer that, we're going to look to Brian Lemay, who's been nice enough to come on the show and talk to us about his process of designing a character. If you don't know, Brian Lemay is an animation veteran, and he designed characters on Inspector Gadget and many others. So what better source of advice and mentorship do we have than Brian Lemay?
My name's Brian Lemay. I'm an animator, or an animation artist, I should say. My career has basically spanned 42 years now. I started in 1980, got a job at a studio in Toronto called Nelvana, where I worked as an animation assistant and then an animator on a television special and a feature film called Rock and Rule. My next job was, again with Nelvana, was working as a character designer on the Inspector Gadget show, the original series. Usually when I'm designing a cartoon character, I have to understand who the character is first. So there's usually a description of some sort that'll tell me who the character is, whether the character is a male or a female, whether they're old or young. And so from that, I have a basis to start on who they are. But usually when I begin a cartoon character, I'll always start off with a cranial mass, which is this part of your head right here, which is basically, it's a circle. And so I always start drawing with a circle first. And then I work things from that point out. I won't necessarily do the entire character's body. Sometimes I'll focus on just the character's head and their facial expressions to try and get a sense of who the character is from that point of view, and then work the body off of that. When you're designing cartoon characters, there are basically 5 different shapes that you can use. And these shapes are all very, very simple shapes. One is the circle. Then what you can do is you can stretch the circle into an oval. Another shape is a cylinder, which is like a pop can. Then you can modify that pop can by either squeezing the bottom so that the top is wider and it turns into a funnel, or you can reverse it so it looks like a pylon where it's thinner at the top and thicker at the bottom. Or you can do what I call the bulge, where you take your pop can, which is straight, and you pull it out on either side to make it wider in the middle. So those are your basic shapes that you can work with. And then you can curve and bend them as much as you can. I try to think in terms of sculpting when I'm designing my characters. So I'm thinking in terms of taking and manipulating the shape as though I'm using my hands and curving the lines in ways that you would use if you were using plasticine. You roll it up in your hand and then you bend it or stretch it or whatever you want to do. Anatomy is really quite important because you're trying to make the character as structurally sound and close to what a human being would be in order to make everything work. It's important in both 2D animation and 3D, more so in 3D animation. Now, when we're drawing cartoon characters in 2D, we don't use a skeleton in every single last drawing. Again, you're working with the basic shapes of the character, but underneath that, you want to understand what the mass is of the character as well as the structure of the character. So you're looking for things like arm lines, a line going through the arm, which would be the bone that holds that part of the body, and you're thinking in terms of the proportion of that arm. Like I said before, when I'm drawing my cartoon characters, I'll always start off with a circle for the head, for the chest, for the hips, and then I draw lines, straight lines that will go out, sort of like a stick figure, that makes the skeleton of the character, and then I build on top of that the form of the character. In animation, we use what's called a model sheet to convey the information of what the character looks like from the point of view of all the different angles of the character. So typically you have what's called a rotation, which has the character standing straight in a straight-on front view where you see them straight on like this to the camera. And then you would have what's called a 3/4 view where the character is rotated to this 3/4 angle that you see here. And then you have a side profile view, straight on side. Then you might have a 3/4 rear view like this. And then you would probably have a complete rear view of the character as well. So that's called your rotation of the character. You would have also expression sheets, which would show what the character's facial expressions are. There are 4 basic emotions, like base level emotions: happy, sad, angry, and surprised. And so you can have a multitude of different variations or shades of those emotions. And so you want to try and convey those emotions in the drawings so that the animators then know how to draw the characters with those specific emotions. So you might have one of the character laughing with their mouth, smiling like this, or at their teeth, or wide open laugh going ha ha ha, that type of thing, or an angry pose. You'd also put in rotations of the character's head. So if the character is really angry, they might be down like this, or if they're laughing really loud, they might tilt their head back like that. So you show all the different types of angles that you can have. So you have a whole series of model sheets, and then you'd also have posing model sheets, which would show the full body of the character doing various things like running, sitting, jumping, all sorts of whatever they do within the animated cartoon. You would show them doing that. Now the model sheet's really important because it passes on all the information about how the character is drawn, from all the different points of view, but it also gives you the proportions of the characters. So this is one of the most important things for people who are designing characters, is to understand proportions. Proportions means the ratio or the size relationship of the different parts of the body. So how big is the nose in relationship to the eyes? Where are the eyes placed on the head? Are they low on the entire head mass? Are they high? Are they in the middle? Are they spread far apart? And the reason for this is that if you've got a number of different animators that are drawing the same character throughout an entire cartoon, you want to make sure that the character looks the same all the way through, that the character doesn't change. So if you've got a character with their eyes very close together, one animator may draw what's called on model, where the character looks exactly like the model sheets and they're supposed to look. And they draw the character's eyes very close together. But there's another animator who decides to go rogue and draw the character with his eyes way out here. Well, that's going to become obvious when you're looking at the different scenes, because each animator would do a different scene. So if you see one scene, the character saying something, their eyes are really close together, and then you cut out to a wider shot, and suddenly the character's eyes are really wide apart, it's going to look weird.
And there you have it, Brian Lemay, character designer for Inspector Gadget, giving us character design advice. And I had him as an instructor for 2 years, and trust me, he knows what he's talking about. Let's take some of his advice now and put it into action right here, and we'll make our character, Barry the Bear, for our animated short, A Good Day to Draw. Here we go. Just like Brian Lemay talked about, I also like to start off with the head. And the important thing is to get all the features right on the face, but make them easy enough to draw for one-person production crew, which is this guy. I have to make sure I don't overcomplicate the character, because if I do, I'm going to end up with so much project and very little resources to get it done. And that's going to be disappointing, and I might cry over it. So after we've gone through and we've gotten our character body of Barry the Bear finalized and we're happy with the head, we can now start working on rotations. We can start working on facial expressions, and we can break those down. And all of these will combined will give us our basic model sheets, which we need to help us understand how to draw Barry the Bear once we get into the animation process. So let's start laying those out now. One of the most boring but most important parts of character design is drawing the character rotation. And just like Brian Lemay mentioned, this is a multi-view angle of your character. Usually a front view, a side view, a front 3/4, a rear view, and oftentimes a rear 3/4. With this information, the animator can more easily learn how to draw the character from any angle. As I'm working on my facial expressions, I'm thinking about the script and the story points to come up with an idea of what are some of the emotions the character is going to need to have. So once I have worked out all of my expressions, my rotations, my action poses, we're ready to hand them over to the animators, and we can move forward in the next stage of the animation production pipeline. Stay tuned for more Drawn to It behind the screens.